feel embarrassed even being up here after that. That was phenomenal. And for me, the fulfillment of a wish I have had for 5 years. So thank you very much. Our next performer tonight is Jeff Derksen, who is a founding member of Vancouver's Kootenai School of Writing and was an editor of the influential magazine Writing. He is the author of numerous books of poetry, including Transnational Muscle Cars, Dwell, and Downtime, the winner of the Dorothy Livesay Poetry Prize. His areas of academic interest are national cultures and the role of the state in the era of globalization, cultural imperialism and the politics of aesthetics, the poetry and poetics of globalized cities, the emergent global cultural front in a general cultural context and in avant-gardes, culture and gentrification in global urban spaces, architecture and urbanism, cultural poetics, cultural studies, and cultural geography.
Just from the department website.
Cultural what?
That in my spare time.
Cultural kayaking.
Critique of cultural kayaking.
Okay. Well, speaking of wish fulfillment, Jeff Derksen and his critique of cultural kayaking.
The era of the role of the human in the era of the neoliberal, I think is maybe. I'm gonna. I think I ruined it. The environment. I think I've ruined it. With my cars. I feel bad. Thanks. That was totally fantastic. I'm going to read from 2 poems, one called Oil for Food, one called The Vestiges. And hopefully they trace a movement towards a social sincerity that I've been thinking about. I called you fellow investor just now for a reason. Events are always original, but they get reabsorbed. North and the idea of North. Toxic assets for a toxic personality. The shoes speak for themselves and need no further explanation. Now is Yemen. Your building speaks Spanish. George W. Bush quotation deleted here. It's their country, after all. The first country I watched get invaded on camera was Grenada. Could the dominance of golf make it any clearer? He could do such a Nixon to China. Given the options, let's opt for optimists, ophthalmologists opposed to oil. The ranch has an organic, love the planet, old hippie vibe, at least once you get past the guardhouse. All yesterday's oligarchies will make videos of the from below democracy of their subjects. I wanted to create a room where just sitting there feels like you're doing something. Kayleen McQuady from Calgary, Canada writes, iPads suck. Everyone has a psycho in their life they want out. You just never thought it would be me. Walk on by, rain keeps falling, down, citizen of flows. Is that Bill Gates on the world music guitar displaced by a mariachi band? Scottish pop, orange juice, and an Aztec camera. Down south, the workers collectivized the factory. Force, of course, or other economic means. Job description. I pretend I like people and they give me money. Ask the architects what is minimal. When the classic rockification of culture hits the imagined middle class, you get a credit cardification of the future. In fact, we could chart our major life events by acquisitions. A table does not make itself, just as it was Pakistan, nor can it dance. Soon we will be ship decommissioning. That is a lyricism we are living. I enter an Iceland period. Digital and the return of analog. Yes, flesh over a titanium skeletal device, since you asked. Captain, dear Captain, were you asleep at the wheel or drunk at the rudder? This administration stands for more than finding another country to go to war against. Good morning, Nigeria. Not even with. All dad, all the time. Slovakia, naturally, alone again. Zurich and Vancouver, pale blue plastic methadone containers east of commerce. The city center, slowly moving east. Down in the valley so pockets of deep poverty. As the dead prey upon us, they hardly freaking notice. The Austrian television premiere of Adam Sandler's Little Nicky is a sad, sad cultural imperialism. Fever. Little Willie John never saw a red cent of that. Pack up your labor power in a flexi pack and hit the global highway, son. They burned some flags, but for us, burning flags is not a security issue. It's an environmental issue. At $2 a day, a European cow makes more than 1 billion people. We're an American bland. Martha Stewart and the return of Martha Stewart. Peppered is the verb for shot. Mexico is now the world's richest man. Total urbanization, says the World Health Organization. The workers themselves spent most of the morning erecting a protective plywood barrier around the building's perimeter. Deliciously flavorful mouthfuls of Thai-baked lentils with paneer, spinach, coconut, and polenta. Pleasure. It fails us now, for it is everywhere. Stop the tyranny of monotonous pleasure. I'll upload your ass instead. Nicaragua returns without a hat, but with the same mustache. Sin sombrero con bigote. At the tipping point of neoliberalism, I write this on April 1st, 2007, and you may read it at any time in the future. A new science, happiness economics. And today the New York Times asks us, can poor people be taught to save? Up north, the workers occupied the plant. Up north, we look to the south. We don't want your ideas, just your labor. Could the crisis of golf make it any clearer? I'm privatizing my liver. The city quickly solves its yacht docking shortage. Decent. Hegemony is hard. It's a hard job. Collectivize as poetic language. I, Maximus, to the mortgage brokers. I, Oppen, to the party operatives. I, Lowther, to the overlords. I, Bernie, to the city. 70s body art and architecture, now that you've found yourself. Mike Tyson and the return of Mike Tyson. I live in a creative city, sir. Book learning, more than a feeling. I am an independent contractor with ownership of my own power washer. Fear sticks to those bodies. And who remembers Archbishop Romero? The vestiges. Linear tankers lie on the harbor's horizon, the speed of globalization. Community-based crystal meth focus groups jog by. China shipping lines, rusted, space metabolized in the city, space secured on the street, spreading through the shipwreck of the singular. At sunset, crows crack mussels at the empty pool, coast, above the transparent penthouse, a speculative building in its ugliness on the edge of the public park. The silhouetted worker swirls her window cleaner every Thursday. Such exhausting ownership, spiraling up, taking space for the singular as a structure. Every day, more intense nature of feeling. The building is horrifying in the materials, bricks, abstracted. Who is not for sustainability and such sincerity? Tell me what is necessary, what is necessary time. Place-making history relives riots with the roles reversed. Coal miners strike, nation pits, cops, unions, towns break down. There is no such thing, famously, and fuck the Falcons. I love a man in a uniform. The call-up, the general strike, called back in the final moment, the retaking of the heart of the neighborhood, a building from a developer's city plan to other hands, to seeing it given again, the gift economy, given, although it can be called something more primitive. The wood squat taught, history teaches, linkages. On the train, Regina, 1935, shot or sent back. On the edge, Otakring, Februar Aufstand, 1934, heavy fighting in the workers' quarter. On the hills, January 1958, Caracas, the modernist blocks mass squatted as Jimenez Perez flew to Miami, and the devil came here today, and the devil came here yesterday, and it smells of sulfur still today. On the streets, 1905, 1,000 slugs of punctuation felling absolutism. When the internal explodes externally, only one factor among many, concrete and who's on top, kicking off another ultimate offer on the table, cutting the legs out from under the fixed factory, itself cut up and shipped off. We don't negotiate with workers or terrorists post-Thatcher, post-Mulrooney, post-Reagan, post-Cole, post-Pinochet, post-NAFTA, post-market bubble, post-industrial, post-port city, post-big bailout, post-market tin pot grab-and-go insiders. Money changing hands like it was material in a brown paper bag under the table of the convention center, shaped like a ship, a decorated shed, a new crass capitalist class. What about? Locked in competition with each other. The super rich eat the rich. A purely technical means of struggle, which can be decided, a kind of pocket knife, which can be kept in the pocket, clasped, ready for any emergency, and according to decision can be unclasped and used. Rosa Luxemburg. Abstract paintings in abstract space, a lobby cleaned on temporary visas, downtown in the financial district distinct. Look at the sun sinking like a ship into stacked colored cube container ships, abstracted. What did the dinosaurs invest in? What is the work week of Wales? What does Finland have that I don't have? From pins to people, it adds up. Soft power over borders holds or hoards bodies, when today arranges arcades. The miracle of social space refracting sheer life, gold, growth industries, public-private partnerships, bare life. That's legislation over flesh. Isn't that the state, how it relates to hollowed out spaces? Nature, what have you done for me that I could not do to you? Nature, without you, there is no stock market and no leisure. Or how Shanghai is tied to Prince George, or what Rotterdam could tell us. The crisis, and then the sell-off crisis, and then the credit crisis, and then the confidence crisis, and then the jobs crisis. Who knew? Capitalism, such a great surprise as cities consolidate. Milton conveyed to millions an understanding of the economic benefits of free competitive markets. 15,000 feet height of horizontal release. Gas gouging, how 70s. Monopolies, how Lenin. Child labor, how Dickens. Bombing Baghdad again, how 90s. War crimes, how Rumsfeld. Apocalyptic weather patterns, how sci-fi. Urban regeneration, how organic. For the mayors of the world, for the lords of zero tolerance, for the presidents of the building, for the captains of commerce who buy the names of civic stadiums, Bolivarians stage a water strike instead. Somewhere a pipeline blows up in Canada. Somewhere an army recruiting office is in flames. Somewhere land is expropriated to grow corn. Exception, state. We can't be more specific than that. What is upon us? The quiet diplomacy of a world connected by things used every day and made elsewhere. Easy. This essay sets out to explore what happens to humans when they are reduced to things by other humans. It's a novel about cities in wartime, a poem about a people in a distinct land, a time-based performance piece about property rights. It's a short documentary about walk-on construction jobs. It's a speculation about what happens to a building that people live in. Yet its Monday and hours harden into labor, then things, shipped out of agreement zones in the global south, daily the stuff that stifles life, the texture of the city, the remaking of its center. Would not the specific urban needs of those of qualified places, places of simultaneity and encounters, places where exchange would not go through exchange value, commerce, and profits? The gray economy, CDs, cells, phones, tools, cassettes, batteries, bikes, lighters, shoes, watches, clothes, cameras, spread on blankets, on the sidewalks, under the overhang of a pawn shop awning, ranked number 1 in the world consistently. Would there not also be a need for a time for these encounters? Each coffee bean is a failed form of cosmopolitanism from below. Prices closed with declines. It rained in the Brazilian coffee belt over the weekend, and it rained in our public sphere too. Love that abstract politics of pleasure, of leisure, of culture, of expertise. Now that art can be anything, a platinum skull encrusted in diamonds at auction, the idea of using our power for moral good in the world is set back on the plaza, bronzed Seagram modernism, floating steel frame anchored clients, bringing Europe to here. What was made and what was gave. The wonder of the arcades. City textures walked at the end of the 19th century. Everything in glass inside is also outside. People reflected, propelled by things, human scale. What does that speak to today? All that is solid again. Gold, silver, not nickel, copper, coal, the power of the straight line. What one calls a paradox is a series of poorly explained contradictions. As for those who love to be astonished, we don't do body counts. Mini tyranny, from me to you, bring it on. A neighborhood on the verge, urban frontiers named and renamed for the incoming pioneers, open newness on the skids, taste cultures, heritage, historic city center, rattling Sunday morning, early dawning, and the alternative economy, bottles and cans, musical in a cart down the alley to the park, where things were once made, when an hour was material at hand, demands for what you never had, shiny, shiny boots of leather lean against a dumpster. Hours add up to space to live per square foot. I am tired, I am weary, worried to kiss the boot. Youth of Eglinton, youth of El 23, youth of South Surrey, youth of Five Corners, youth of La Paz, youth of the moment. An object outside ourselves. That petrol emotion, that market meltdown, that baton on bone, a thing. What's gold doing today? What is copper down to? At this point, I will no longer refer to the city, but to the urban. I found a flaw in the model of how the world works. Thought that cities were the keg or idea that would reveal what relations, what public histories lay under the paving stones, which were arbitrary for throwing, of what gets empowered and what gets contained. The city digs itself out as others dig themselves in. Another use for nature, for buildings, music, acoustic, that late 60s ringing where evil grows. Will it occupy the libraries and access to a language, only the image of a voice through a soft coo, reduced to admiring his ruthlessness? So present as to decompress, shattered, students shake blankets from the library windows, taped up for the tear gas canisters to come. Spent a week in a dusty library, waiting for some words to jump at me. Sounds like George Oppen's skill saw squeezed through Gang of Four 80s monochrome top button stagewear, having a beer with the Russian typesetters spontaneously on the eve of the 1905 strike, counting slugs, commas, and lead. What we need right now is fresh availability. Did not rise like the sun at the appointed time. It was present at its own making. How I feel on the inside is not so different from how it looks on the outside. Under conditions of my own making or under conditions of my making? Embedded lyric. I don't have a hard heart, but capital has grizzled it up. That and other crap. Letter mistakenly sent to myself. I have had to learn how to stop being a prick. It was tough, given my training. It was tougher, given the times. Cars, finally, were not to be my trade. Paper, instead, stepped in patriarchally. We may all be belated, and we are all uneven, multiple, and multitude. That's for mouths to chew. That's for you. I've sought what pleasures paper and rubber could give. But the world keeps on turning more and more, and that is what you should ask of me, more, and that is what I should give. Expect the exception today. The one gives way to a way of life, less singular, less solitary, the horizontal lay of the body over the state. That seems to be the question today, if difference is spreading, and often softer words for privatization. strategies for outflanking and the outflanking of strategies. The question on the tip of everyone's handheld. Smuggled letter to Kevin and Dorothy. Kevin Davies and Dorothy Trujillo-Lusk. Now I fully understand your wholly owned subsidiary as a pushback against what felt like, in the looming time up to the general strike, really felt like an attack on life as we were trying to live it, at least east of Main Street, where the wind blew heavy along the chicken processing plant on Cordova and the borderline duet, keeping the true love of mine once was a true dividing line. Another day of you and me under conditions. Another day of markedly different. Another day of streets in the city promising. Another day of the idea of streets. Another day behind the wheel and of the rubber hitting the rub. Another private day, another making a day. Another day of one of the lowest tax regimes in the world up my ass sideways. Another day of making nature. Another day of D-class citizens. Another day of the movement of goods. Another day of cutting back to get ahead. Another day of wealth rising. Another day of A-class citizens. Another day in which there is the opportunity to file a complaint against the police to the police. Another day, another time for property over people. Another day foreclosed. Another day of we can perceive its limits at the same time its necessity. Another day upon arrival. Another day up for grabs. Thanks a lot.